We'd like to start by acknowledging that this podcast is written and recorded on stolen land. Holly and Hilary are on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples, and Jenna is on the land of the Darug and Gundungurra peoples.
The sex industry sits at the intersections of many marginalities, including race, gender, ability, class, and sexuality. We are only able to share our own experiences and do not speak on behalf of this incredibly broad industry nor the people in it. We try to share different perspectives on the show, but we also encourage our listeners to seek out a diverse range of voices representing the industry.
Welcome to Somebody You Love, or The Sale of Two Titties. I'm Jenna Love.
And I'm Holly Hart.
And we're experts in disappointing our parents, breaching community guidelines, and banging the people who vote against our rights. Dr. Hilary Caldwell has been a sex worker for over 20 years and decided to come out of hiding to publish her first book. She is an academic with a master's in health science and applied science. Her doctorate, Women Who Buy Sex in Australia, was the first study in the world to explore women buying sexual services. It was informed by her sex work and professional career in the field of sexology. She's kinky and queer, a mother and a grandmother.
Dr. Caldwell has recently released her first book, Slutdom, which argues convincingly and passionately for women's enjoyment of sex as a force to advance gender equality, delving into topics such as pleasure, pain, empowerment, and including real women's stories and saucy tips. We are welcoming Dr. Caldwell on the show to discuss her research, the Slutdom movement, and her experiences as an academic and a secret sex worker. Welcome to the show, Hilary.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenna and Holly. It's so good to be here.
As you mentioned earlier, this has been a long time coming. Hilary has been sharing little updates, what she can with us about the book in the lead up to the release, and it's really exciting that it's finally here. And I wish I have a copy in my house, but it's not in my hand right now. She's got one in her hand. She's displaying it to the camera that no one can see, but it looks great. All right, let's jump into some questions. So, a huge one for Holly and us, which is, it is an experience we've sort of had, but not to this extent. You've hidden your sex work for 20 years. Can you talk to us about about how hiding it has affected the different facets of your life?
Yeah, hiding it, it was necessary for my safety and for the safety of my kids to hide it. I totally knew the kind of discrimination and stigma that sex workers face, and I didn't want my children to suffer that. And the whole point of my doing sex work was to rise our status from poverty to middle class, well, my hope. But keeping a secret from them was really hard because I often felt like I couldn't talk about my day. I couldn't be honest with them about so many things, and it definitely did affect our relationship. While I was protecting my kids and they got older, then they started having kids and I started worrying about protecting my grandkids. And then, eventually I realised I had to tell them, and it's just been so much better since I told them. My sexology career was negatively affected by keeping a secret because I was on the founding board of directors for the Society of Australian Sexologists, and sexologists work very hard to try to promote their services as being non-touch. So anyone involved in touch industries is not really sort of included in the membership of the society, and I was secretly doing that, which caused a lot of conflict for me and also a lot of fear that if I was to be outed while working for the Society of Australian Sexologists, that I would be somehow putting the society into disrepute. So that was tough. But now I realise that, well, actually, no one should be slut-shaming anyone for doing touch. So, yeah, it's time to come out and be proud. An academic career, well, I was too afraid to come out as an academic because I felt like even if the people in my unit accepted and respected the experience I had, I wouldn't be able to put it into my written work in any way because it wouldn't be disseminated in the same way and respected in the same way during the broader academic community. So I felt like I couldn't really use my sex work knowledge and skills to contribute to my PhD. And I feel now that was a great limitation of my work. It would have been better.
Yeah, thank you. Can I ask, I'm going to delve into a couple of those. So in terms of your kids and your grandkids, of which you have many, as somebody who's child-free, you have an alarmingly high amount of children and grandchildren. What can I ask? What sort of age? Oh, obviously your kids were adults. I'm assuming by the time you told them.
Oh yes, I only told them last year. They're all in their 30s now.
Yeah, right. And what about the grandkids? Do you have a sense of what age you feel is appropriate to give that information to them?
Well, now I feel like it's appropriate at all ages, because I think that secret keeping is part of the silencing of sex that adds to the shame for everyone, not just for sex workers. So I feel like every age is appropriate to talk about sex in a general way. You know, my eldest grandchild is learning to drive now, and we don't tell kids that we don't not talk about driving because they're not old enough. So it's okay to talk about sex because they're not old enough. In the same way, like it's just.
And there's a lot of danger in driving.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot.
Far more than having sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my youngest grandchild's just a bubba, and my oldest one is driving.
I think this is something that, I mean, I know it's something I grapple with quite a lot because I've got young family members. I've got one niece that I'm really close with, and I just recently spoke to her parents and said, when she asks, what do you want me to say and where? Because, you know, I think obviously it sort of comes down to what the parents want. But it's really tough. What is the appropriate age and what language do you use? You know, all of that stuff is difficult. Like I said to them, I can say I cuddle people or I'm friends with people. You know, I don't want to. I want to say exactly what happens. And I want that in every aspect of my life. But it's just a complicated one. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. I'm 100% with you, but obviously not all parents will feel the same way. In terms of the sexology stuff, I have always found that quite interesting, this distancing from those of us who do touch our clients. And I understand there's a need to delineate different industries. But from what I understand, there are a lot of people who work in both industries as well. Would that be your experience?
Well, yeah, I certainly know of other sexologists who have side jobs with a different name. I think what's important is that clients know what sort of service provider they're seeing. That's the most important thing, because all these services are valid and help people in their sexual lives, and they're highly skilled and respected. But I think they should be respected equally. I don't think there should be a hierarchy of which type of even education or type of service is. I don't think there should be any hierarchy at all.
Can you tell us a little bit about the role of the sex work community for you?
Yes, but I can't tell you that until I thank you, Holly, because you have set up quite a few hoedowns in our capital city, which have given me so much friendship and support and feeling of family. And I think more broadly, I actually feel that my whole family is extremely important to me. They were the only people that were able to support me through that secret for 20 years. So, and that's a big secret to have. So I felt like my whole family was extremely important to me then, but also now, because we are very diverse, but that is such a strength. I've learned everything I know about sex work from experience, my own experience, but also talking to other people who do sex work. I think it's, I've just learned so much, and being actively involved in sex worker organisations, Scarlet Alliance, and the different various swaps. And whenever I used to tour around Australia, I'd always connect with my local sex worker peer org, because I felt like I really needed to just check in with my people and find out what's going on. I just have a cup of tea, really, because that's always felt like that to me. It's like family.
Yeah. I think, agreed, RE family, but it also is that, you know, local. This is why I always say one of the most important things for anyone in this industry is to make sure they are connecting not only with other sex workers, but with sex workers in their area, because that local knowledge is super important for safety, but also just for running an effective business. Speaking of your safety, did hiding your sex work ever have an impact on that?
Yes, so much. So much so that it took me quite a long time to realise that the secret was more dangerous than the truth. I guess I had to stop thinking about the risk to my children in order to see that difference. But yes, having a secret was very dangerous because I have been stalked, followed by clients, extorted for sex. You know, we'll tell someone if you don't do whatever we want right now, blackmailed in other ways. I have had the fear of being outed in health settings has meant that I have sometimes been refused, but at other times actually been too afraid to engage with health services or justice. I once did an anonymous interview for a newspaper because I wanted to participate in some activist work, even though I was undercover. I used
we've all done the undercover hooker media interview. And, I am familiar with it.
But they took photos that weren't anonymous and they put them in the paper with my legal name in the paper. And I immediately got it out, except for the printed copy, which, on a camera, so not many people saw it. But,
that's devastating.
Fuck.
I paid a lawyer $20,000 to get my picture out of that. Yeah. And I never got the money back because, if I went to court, they would have to use my legal name and out me.
Yep.
So, yeah, $20,000 in sex work resources would have been so much better used. If I wasn't hiding a secret, that cost me that much.
Yeah, I think this is a fascinating conversation. I'm a big believer that secrets hurt more than truths. I love that you articulated that. And it's a personal battle for everyone who's got any kind of secret, right? And we know, as you said, that the stigma and the discrimination is very real. The risk of violence just for you being a sex worker is real, but those things are also real if it's not known. Like this, it's stigma, discrimination, violence are all realities, whether it's a secret or whether it's open, and that's really, really tough. Yeah.
When somebody has that power of something they can hold over you, that is devastating. I'm so sorry. I'm absolutely rattled and so disturbed by the unprofessionalism of the media. That is horrific that happened to you. I'm just shocked and I'm so angry about it. It's so upsetting. Can you imagine the consequences for so many people if that sort of thing? I mean, it's obviously the consequences for yourself, Hilary, were very dire and very stressful, but for many people it could be life-threatening.
And life-threatening for their children and the people around them, which is where,
the ripple effect is huge.
Yeah.
What has made now the time that you decided to come out as a sex worker?
Well, the other thing I didn't say before about the dangers of having a secret was the most colossal slut-shaming moment of my life. That's what made me change my mind and come out, because I was fighting for the right to access disability services through the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. And after 5 hours of fairly brutal cross-examination, my case was looking pretty positive for being eligible for services. And then the barrister for the NDIA pretty much accused me of being a sex worker and then stopped the court proceedings. And then I was given time to think about this. If I was about to be accused of being a sex worker, I could deny it and then be caught lying and my whole case would be ruined. Or I could accept that I could agree that I'm a sex worker, and not only would that affect my case and the member presiding, but the transcript would be made public.
Fuck.
My children would read that because they're interested in disability services as well. Everyone with my particular condition, Ehlers-Danlos, would be reading that because they'd be looking to see how did someone win a case or not through NDIA processes. And so I walked away. I decided not to fight for disability services, so I didn't get any. And I just thought, wow, having sex with people, that's what it costs you. Like, it was horrific. I really suffered my mental health then in a way that I'd never suffered before. And when I decided to pick myself up, it was because I made that decision. I'm going to stand up and fight now. I'm never going to be blackmailed again.
That's really powerful.
And the fact that you are doing a job which suits someone with a disability, the amount of people in sex work who have EDS, like, I feel like it's the most common disability in this industry. I've got no idea of the stats, but I seem to know so many.
Yeah, and I serve people with disabilities as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I get paid from NDIS to look after other people, but I couldn't get any service myself.
Yep. Yeah. And what was used against your claim was, well, you've chosen a line of work that is really quite appropriate for somebody with a significant disability. And that was supposed to be a reason against you having this disability or needing, like, the logic. There's no logic there.
No, it's strange.
Aside from,
Do you think that he, aside from trying to use that as a bit of a gotcha, do you suspect that they knew that you would not want that information out there and that would influence you to back down?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just another example of the stigma and the shame causing so much damage. That is horrific.
And so that moment for you, when you, as you said, when you kind of collected yourself and you went, I'm not having that anymore.
I finally realised in that moment when I decided that coming out was the only way, that I finally realised that the legacy I was leaving my adult children was one of hiding from the shame. I don't feel ashamed, but other people do, and they try to push that on you. So I realised if that was the legacy I was going to leave them, then actually they would be better served if I said the shame stops here. I'm going to stand up to this, and I want my children to see me doing that.
Yeah. What has their response been?
They were pretty surprised.
Well, you've done a good job at keeping the secret then.
I did a really good job, yeah. In fact, that was why they were so surprised, because they didn't believe I could keep the secret for that long. They were pretty surprised, but also, at first they tried to sass me a little bit, but, I made it clear about the sacrifices I've made for them, and they got it real quick. And they've been so good since, like checking in and supporting me and sticking up for me. It's been really nice. I feel that our relationship is so much better, and that's another reason why I'm sorry I kept a secret for so long. We could have been real, friends with an honestly, our relationship would have been more honest, and it is now. So that's great.
Yeah, it's complicated though, and I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
Okay, so tell our listeners about your book, Slutdom.
So, well, all this was happening to me, and I was making the decision to come out. I was writing the book of my PhD about, I think it was called When Women Buy Sex or Sexual Services. So it was all about just my PhD. It was making it into stories, so it was easy to read. But again, like my thesis, it didn't have all of me. It had some of my sexology knowledge, but it didn't have what I learnt hands-on. Like, that's really important. And so when I decided that I was going to use the book to come out, which has been such a success, then I started writing my own story into it. And so Slutdom is written like a story. You can read it like a story. Not just my story, but the stories of all the women I interviewed for my PhD and all the ones since. So it's got over 50 women's voices, but also sex workers' voices and professional, the sexologists, the talk therapists as well. I have wonderful networks of people, and I didn't want the whole book to be my voice. I wanted it to really be speaking from many different viewpoints. So overall, it's an exploration of the embodiment of sexual power. So overall, Slutdom is about how the pleasure, the pain, and the empowerment of sex can all be used for our individual empowerment and confidence, but our collective as well. Because I came to realize as I was writing that when women become sexually empowered, they actually walk different, talk different, they work in a different way. Like women who feel so good in their bodies, they then feel that they can do other things. They know what they want, not just in sex, but in everything. They know what they know. They make a plan and enact it. They initiate things. They negotiate on a different level. So I realized that sexual power was really important for gender equity, because sexual shame isn't heaped on men the same way it's heaped on women. And it's the shame of sex that we so often don't even examine. Like the number of times in your life you've been slut shamed and you don't even think about it having any effect on you now, but it does. Everything that you've been indoctrinated with has affected the way you are today. So, I realised that the slut shaming of women that keeps us all subservient to men could actually be stopped with collective action. And along the way, we could all have great sex as well. So that would make everybody happy. So Slutdom is actually a call to say, why don't we all be a lot more sexy, a lot more free, and a lot more happy? Because, sex is so good for us, like on-board antidepressants, anti-anxiety, anti-pain relief, pain relief. There's so many benefits to sex that we should be enjoying because we're alive. And, the world is becoming sort of more hateful and scary and anxious and difficult, but we've got an onboard system that we are shaming each other out of using. It doesn't make any sense anymore.
And for what? For what?
For what? So that men can be more powerful than women.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to live that way.
We're on board. We're in Slutdom with you, babe.
Thank you. Yay. Sluts unite.
Could you talk us through which sex work skills you think are poorly understood and not respected by civilians?
So many. And I want to say sex itself is the thing that is most disrespected and should not be. Because if we're good at sex, we can give people pleasure. We can help them learn about their bodies. We can help them negotiate consent better. Like sex is or sexual pleasure is such a great motivator for people to be better, that we can share that. So why aren't sexual skills by themselves respected? Because if you say that people who are good at sex, that means sluts are good, then, that's not really buying into it. So, the actual skills of having sex should be respected because they are communication skills on the biggest level. I mean, we can negotiate ourselves out of a difficult situation when we're naked and when there's a man twice our size on top of us. We can negotiate that. Like I challenge the shop store manager with having those kinds of negotiation skills. We really know how to speak for ourselves and look after ourselves, and sex work taught me that. And also like negotiating consent and, like 1,000 ways to make sure you put on a condom, or a condom gets put on. We just have the most amazing skills with negotiation that are so poorly recognised, and conflict resolution. But also I think there's some fundamental changes about when you decide to use sex for work that are also poorly understood and respected, and that is that we decouple sex from love. And that, I think, is a really important skill, because this whole idea of the whole Disneyland idea of marrying your Prince Charming and being happy forever after, because the only good sex is that when you're in love, is really damaging and hurtful for all of us. So we really need to stop thinking like that. And sex workers are experts at not having that idea that all sex has to be in love, but also desire. Like, we can choose to like something about someone that might not be their external appearance and give them the best sexual experience because they deserve it for simply being alive and wanting the same, wanting to share. So, yeah, we decouple sex from desire in a way that means we can minister to the people that nobody else will. We look after people that nobody else does. And I think that is really poorly respected by the community. And also shame. Shame might be heaped on us, but we don't take it on. We don't feel shame about sex. We can have as much fun, or we can just use it for work, or we can do whatever we want with sex. We certainly don't need to feel shame for it. And I think that a lot of sex workers who aren't happy in their jobs, I think they're still working on that idea that shame about sex is not for us. We don't have to have that. And
it took me a long time, so I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah, tell me, Holly.
I think for many, many years in my sex work career, I and Jenna and I have talked about this recently, I believe on the show, that we still have to check in with our internal whorephobia sometimes and wonder, like, why am I thinking this thing or another thing, and sort of unpack whether we're motivated by shame in certain aspects of our work or by societal views that aren't necessarily helpful to us. I know that for a lot of my early sex work years, I was not out because of certain concerns for family and safety and things like that, but also because, there was shame. And I felt like I wasn't allowed to enjoy sex and I wasn't allowed to enjoy doing sex for a job. And that's a reason why I didn't commit to the industry as much as I wanted to early on, because I kept thinking there's something wrong with me for wanting to be a sex worker. And only people who do that must be damaged people, must be broken women, things like that. This narrative took me so long to work through. And I think finding community was a big part of helping me work through those things and understanding that we're all people and we're all varied and quite impressive people, really. But yeah, that really stuck with me for a long time.
I think what you said about uncoupling sex from love and from desire is that's one of the biggest things I've gotten out of sex work, and I think sex work has taught me a far healthier relationship with sex, and it's quite an interesting one because I think a lot of the I speak a lot on social media, and so I'm dealing with trolls and losers all the time, but also people that are very well-meaning and have a different viewpoint. And I think a lot of the criticism of sex work is often that we are devaluing sex, or that we are uncoupling sex from love. There's a lot of this, what you're doing, you're ruining the sanctity of love or whatever, that those two ideas are inherently tied up, and that we are somehow we're doing something destructive by breaking them down. And I find that so fascinating because my personal journey, and I think our world's journey, really to separate those things is really, really important. Though sex and love being inherently connected, I think is really damaging and can be a real problem. If you don't ever want to have sex without being in love with someone, that's so fine. Go forward that way, but I think we have to acknowledge that they are different things. They have different purposes. There is crossover, but they're different things.
Totally agree. I actually really look forward to a time when young people are warned off watching rom-coms.
Preaching to the converted.
Oh my God.
I hate rom-coms.
We do with our bodies. Rom-coms ruin us for that idea that sex and love are the ultimate.
Yeah. They're gross. They're also just so shit. Like, that's not good.
This is violence against me, okay? I love rom-coms. I love a sappy, cheesy love story.
We'll help you evolve, Holly.
Yeah, help me grow beyond it. Thanks.
Yeah. You've joined the slutdom now. You have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think the stuff around negotiating, conflict resolution, really, I think sex workers have an ability to sit in the grey of things that not everyone is able to do. And I think that's really powerful. I think it's a real strength to be able to kind of accept murkiness and to sit in the in-betweens and to acknowledge that two things can be true even though they seem to be quite in opposition. I think that's a really powerful skill.
Yeah, I think you're saying something that I feel a lot too, and that's like we can talk to anyone. And if we can have a conversation that might be difficult on the street about different political views, but then still fuck someone with the same amount of compassion and kindness, like that's a skill.
I struggle more with that one. Yeah. I'll say personally, I'm not as good at that one, but but I agree that sex workers as a whole absolutely are, and there's plenty of workers who are very able to do their jobs, keeping politics out of it, or even, sort of aligning themselves with a different political message, which is the message that their clients sit with.
Or using that little post-coital moment of vulnerability to feed your own ideas.
Oh, yes.
Brain. I mean,
that's the one I do. That's me.
Yeah.
I get them in with the boobs and then I hit them with the political messaging. Mm-hmm. That's the Jenna Love strategy.
I can attest. That's how she got me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's move on. We did let our patrons know that we'd be having you on the show. Unfortunately, we did this a little bit shorter notice than we usually do, so we didn't give them a huge amount of notice, but we did get in a fantastic question, which was, did you experience any pushback or barriers with trying to get female-centric, sex-positive research approved?
Yes, so many. I really had to fight for the right to even do a PhD in the topic from the beginning. I think mostly, though, it wasn't like pushback against female sex positivity. It was more a disbelief that this phenomenon of women buying sexual services was a thing. Like they just didn't believe it. And, I've got insider knowledge which I couldn't claim. So yes. I felt like it was a hard thing to do. But, yeah, the kind of sex research that I was doing is just not really respected by the university in the same way. I was way more qualified than all the other students there at the time. I had 2 master's degrees, one in research proper and going into my PhD, and I still was refused funding. 5 semesters in a row, I never received funding. Sex work funded my academic career and the knowledge that I added to this country. Thank you, sex work, yet again, for allowing these things to happen, because damn sure the establishment's not doing it.
And you stopped your affiliation with any university. So that was something that... Obviously, your PhD has to go through a university, right? But then in writing the book, you sort of stepped away and said this isn't going to be an academia thing.
Yeah, I realised that I wanted to reach the general public in a way that academic work often doesn't. But I also realised that the limitations for being an academic meant that I had to kind of protect the university or speak in a certain way and not acknowledge my sex work skills to the same degree. So, yeah, I realised that, same with sexology as a profession, I realised I would be far better off as an independent using my voice with all of the benefit of the knowledge that I've received in all of those areas. Definitely don't want to make out that they were bad experiences or the wrong thing to do. Of course, it all added up to something I think is much more worthwhile, which is, Slutdom. I wrote it for everyone. I don't want it to be locked away in a university library.
Mm. And I will say it reads as though it's for everyone. It's an accessible read. It doesn't read like an academic textbook, which is great.
Thank you. I want it to be a story.
I just wanted to add, and usually when I add things, they're clumsy at best, so apologies for that in advance. But I noticed that as Jenna mentioned before, she does a lot of online advocacy, and regularly she gets people telling her that there is no stigma in sex work anymore. And obviously society has moved forward so far in so many ways, and we're very grateful. And particularly here in Australia, we have many privileges that do not exist in other places around the world, and particularly in decriminalized or very lightly what would be the word? Lightly enforced, legalized states. But your whole story is such a clear narrative of the stigma that still exists in so many ways. And even with somebody who has put in vast amounts of effort, their own funds, their entire heart and soul into this research and creating this information and making it accessible for people, and still you have to have these considerations where you go, well, even though I'm putting this beautiful creation out into the world, a university won't want to be associated with me because of the work I've done. Like, that is really, really backwards, and it's so sad to hear today. And it just is, a testament to the stigma that still exists. And
yeah, it is. I do know some sex workers who work for universities who are out very successfully, Zara Stardust and a few others. So it's not like it can't be done, but I think it does have an effect on the way your work is disseminated. Yeah. Still, which I agree is still, it's 2024. We are seeing great change. I really do think this is the right time for Slutdom. It's the right time for sex workers to really rise up. There is great change happening, and the more women that get angry about their situation, the better. Angry women make change.
Definitely. Can I ask you, Hilary, a little bit, because I spoke to you a few times before the book release about some of your fears with, I guess, the reception of the book, but and coming out as a worker, and kind of the way that writing a book puts a bit of a media spotlight on you. And obviously that's, in some ways that's a good thing, because we want this book to sell, but it also, you are the book. Could you talk to us a little bit about how you felt about those things?
I was so terrified in the lead up to coming out. I couldn't speak about anything else. Anyone say, "How are you? The sky is blue," whatever, and I'd be like, I'm scared. I can't really say what I was scared of at the actual time of coming out, because it's been really awesome. Everyone in my life so far has been very, very supportive. I still do have recurrent nightmares about groups of incels torching my house, and perhaps worse. Yeah, I still have those kinds of fears. I feel they're probably unreasonable, but I still have them. Yeah, I still have to do work. It's constant for the rest of our lives, I think, because when you come out, it's not one single moment either. I had some friends over last night, and they were saying that our mutual friends were saying, "Oh, Hilary was a sex worker," and they were going, "No, she did say very clearly she's still a sex worker." Yeah. And they were like, "Oh, no, not still, she's a grandmother." But they kind of didn't hear what I was saying.
Oh, they don't.
They weren't
People
ready.
are very good at not hearing it. Yeah.
So the coming out process is not a single moment. It's the rest of your life. And I understand that, but I still do have some fears for safety.
Yeah, look, I think I don't think we've talked about that on the show before, how sometimes the coming out is really difficult because people can't hear what you're saying and you have to keep finding different ways to explain it, and their brains are just not taking it in. And I have this wherever I go representing Scarlet Alliance. I say, from Scarlet Alliance, and they go, "Oh," and often they don't know what it is, and I explain it's the National Sex Worker Association, and they go, "Oh, I guess they need help too." And I'm like, me, I need help. I'm trying to help myself here. And they go, what do you work with brothels? I'm like, no, we're all whores. Like, what? And I have to, no, like, people pay me money and I have sex with them. and then they leave like that. It's so hard to explain to some people what you'd think was a very simple concept. But anyway, and I think on this idea of safety, hearing you sort of say, oh, it's probably not, there's not a high probability of the incels torching your place, say, I think, yes, perhaps realistically you're right. But I think a lot of us know that fear. And I think that, that specific scenario may not be super likely. But when you've seen and experienced firsthand the hatred that people have for us and what we stand for, how can you not have those fears? I live with those every day.
Really validating. Yeah, that's quite true. Yeah.
I think that I don't think it's irrational.
Thank you.
I did notice, having attended your fantastic book launch the other week, that you were talking about how many people in that audience you knew from various facets of your life. And it was, I messaged Jenna, I think pretty much as soon as I arrived, and said, there are so many people here. Like, I was expecting a really very intimate, quiet little book launch. It was packed in there. I think they almost ran out of seats. Maybe they did run out of seats. And that, as a sex worker, that felt really great. Just turning up and seeing that people were there in support of something sex work related and sex related and feminist, female empowering. All of those things was really, really impressive to see. But as you were talking, you were also saying that, yes, some of the people there may not have known before this book launch about your past and about your sex work, and how many of them were from different, as I said, different facets of your life, and how nice it was to see them all there supporting you. And I felt that love in the room. I felt like everything you said, even things that were a little bit like saucy, there was people nodding all around, and it's particularly there were so many men in the audience, and all the men were nodding, and that's so true about sexual empowerment, and it was just so nice. So I hope that you still feel so much support from everyone around you, even though it's been terrifying taking that huge step.
Thank you, Holly. I really do. And I felt the love in the room too. And that was I couldn't have wished for anything more. I totally loved seeing the horse.
Yeah.
Right down the back.
Look, I'm going to blame the wonderful lady that I came with. In fact, we were just around the corner, and she goes, "Oh, I think it's we're still half an hour early." And I said, "No, it's for 6 o'clock." And she went, "Oh yeah." So we scurried in, and we couldn't get in the door because I'm assuming for security reasons, which is part of the stigma that we were talking about. Everything was locked, so we sort of had to, get let in, and it was very secure in that regard. But yes, we were happy to see a couple of other whores there. I turned up in my whore shirt that Jenna made, and the lovely lady that I turned up with also was wearing a Jenna Love shirt. So we were there to represent as well and support you, obviously, and yeah. Super cute.
Yeah, it was wonderful. I loved seeing whores in the room, and also I was a nurse for 15 years, and I run with groups. That's a huge community in Canberra. I've been pole dancing for 20 years. I was the longest serving student of pole dancing in Canberra.
I do enjoy that. It does seem from your video view that there is a pole in your dining room. Is that correct?
It is a pole. It is for dancing. Yes.
Fantastic. I wish my grandma had that.
Well, I'll tell you what, the grandkids probably get more out of it than I do. They absolutely love it. They run in straight away. Arms open, not for me, for the pole.
For the pole.
But then we can play, and it's
great.
Really fun. So
that's gorgeous. How absurdly wholesome is that?
Yeah. And I had also family. I had my parents who couldn't hear anything. And I had some of my kids were there as well. It was a beautiful event.
Thank you. It was fantastic.
I'm going off on another little segue now. Okay. Tell us about telling your parents.
Yeah. Well, my mum is really religious, and she has very strong ideas about gender. And she believes that women were made by God to serve men. And she believes that every single minute of your day and your life, you should be serving men. So when I told my mother, instead of saying, I chose to tell her by saying, Mum, I look after men. I make them comfortable.
Yes.
The men that can't get looked after any other way, I look after them just one at a time. And she totally accepted
I love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great way for you to approach that.
We're skilled at telling people what they want to hear.
Yes. That's very, very true. That's excellent. Phenomenal. Okay, we are ready for Shit People Say, and we haven't done this segment for ages. I can't remember the last time I said those words.
Yeah, I've received a few messages from people going, can we get some shit people say? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
I love it.
The crowds. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, we'll take that on board. But Hilary, I believe you have a Shit People Say for us.
I do. A very recent one, actually.
Oh, lovely.
Just before my book came out and just before I came out, I was telling someone that I'd written a book that was, S-L-U-T, Slutdom. They were shocked. They didn't know that I was a sex worker. I didn't tell them that I was a sex worker, just that I've written a book called Slutdom. And this man thought it was terribly important for me right there and then to understand that women really need men. Don't get out of place here, girl, because women really need men in case other men are going to be violent. I'm like, wow, in the same week in the news, we're talking about how many women have been killed. What kind of protection racket are you running here? Because, you're telling me about violence just because I told you I wrote a book about sex.
About enjoying sex.
Yeah.
What the fuck,
Don't
man?
do that too much because it's about your husband, not you.
Oh, my God. I mean, that's that's why everyone in America needs guns, right? Because if somebody else, a bad guy with a gun, can be stopped by a good guy with a gun.
That's right. Yeah. And they're not having much sex either, by the way.
No, and this is the problem. I guarantee gun violence will drop if they decriminalise sex work.
Yes.
I will die on that hill. It's not based in any evidence or science, but I believe it with all of my heart. I think there'd be less school shootings if they decriminalise sex work. That's my view.
Yep, I'm with you.
That's wild. Oh, that man.
Did this man know about your decades of research?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't rip him a new asshole over that.
Oh, I will. I mean, just the idea that you said I've written a book, which is about women enjoying sex, and his brain was like, but violence. I mean, that's alarming.
Be careful, girl. Be careful.
Yeah, that's the red flag. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, we're lucky. We're lucky we have men to let us know to worry about violence from men.
Yeah. And this,
Otherwise,
this comes
we might
back
be in
to
trouble.
sex work community, right? I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a couple of really wonderful men in my life. But aside from them, the people who have kept me safe have been women and non-binary individuals. In my life, like, men have not protected me from men's violence. Women have.
I think women understand violence against us in a different way.
Actually, the exception to that would probably be bi men or pansexual men, men who also understand the experience of violence at the hands of men. I think that's
unfortunately true.
Yeah. Well, that's a downer.
That is.
There must be some funny shit, right?
But
well, what we should talk about is where people can get the book.
Oh, well, if you can't get it at your local bookshop, ask for it, because local booksellers have been wonderful. And it is in most major bookshops. It's not in the discount department stores because they haven't banned it yet, but I think that will happen soon. But yeah, it is in all the other bookstores, and also you can get it online. Unfortunately, not with Booktopia, not advised, but at UQP, my gorgeous, very loyal and brave publisher.
Fantastic. And is there a way that people can keep up with what you're doing? And I know you're not big on the socials.
I'm not big on the social. I still have to learn how to repost a gram thing. But I might ask for help with that soon.
We can help you. Let us know. We'll help you.
Thank you. Yeah, I shut my websites down for the minute, but I'm actually starting up a mass online book club hub.
Oh, great.
because I want people to set up book clubs if they're not already in one to discuss slutdom and then send their de-identified notes on, because I think the collective wisdom of everyone reading slutdom could be really important for what I do next, but also for what I want to give
what we all do,
everyone next. So so I'm setting up that online bookshop book space at the moment, and there is some information which will be up on the UQP website soon.
Ooh, I've got to get my mum onto that, because she's been disappointed with a few book clubs that she's joined. So I'm going to get her onto that one. She can read that. Like, she'll love that.
You might bond with her book club in a new and different way.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
I reckon she'll really enjoy Slutdom.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
she would really, she'd get a lot out of it.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks.
Especially seeing her expert daughter, Jenna Love, quoted in
well,
or twice.
Yeah. I will say she's read a couple of paragraphs of the book already, but in a very biased sense. She hasn't read all the rest of the stuff. But I'll get it. I think she will like it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hilary, for being on the show.
Thank you, Jenna and Holly. I really have wanted to be on the show forever.
You've made it. You finally made it.
Well, yeah, we couldn't have had you on before because we wouldn't have been able to say you were a sex worker, right? So we would have had to have had some sort of sneaky alter ego story. Yeah. This was the time. This is the time for you to shine. Well deserved.
Thank you, Holly. It was worth waiting.
We knew we wanted you on here and to talk about the book, but I personally, wasn't expecting some of the more vulnerable stories that you shared with us, and I think they're incredibly powerful and stories that people will relate to on different levels, and I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna.
So everyone, please go out and buy Slutdom and join the Slutdom. Thanks so much, Hilary. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
All right, it's that time of the episode when we thank our stunning, gorgeous and sexy and probably slutty patrons.
We hope so.
We hope so. We love sluts. Although, I guess we also love people who are ace and demi and actually we just love everyone, okay?
You can be an ace slut. You can be a demi slut. It's about your soul. It's about owning it. Yeah.
Are you a slut in your soul?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we'll see if Hilary agrees with that. She's gone now. So anyway, they are our even more generous somebodies: the Riley McDonald, the Desiree Framboise, the Ashley Stafford, the Rhiannon Rhodes, Lachlan, Timmy, Steve, Adele, Scott C, Leslie, Sub London, NK, Andrew, Wheezy, Mr. E, Simon, Luke, Frankie, Katakulwala, Witty Comment, Alex, David and Josh.
And our extremely generous somebodies: the Madison Jones, the Sienna Saint, Aaron, Andrew, Adam Smith, Pete, Tim, Tom and Mr. Sikunt.
Thanks so much. See you next time. Mwah.
Stay slutty.
Please look out for us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and Patreon. Our name everywhere is Somebody You Pod, as in podcast. Our Patreon starts at just $3 a month, and you can get all of our episodes ad-free and a day early, plus bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes action, bloopers, and more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the voices of sex workers. And remember, somebody you love might just be a sex worker.